Coming up this weekend at middleweight, this is the hardest fight to try and predict. And listen, the last couple of weeks, our crystal ball has been broken. I dropped it out in a parking lot, and it is just gone. So I'm going to try and hit you with the facts. We're going to spit some realness, as the kids would say, about Ugly Man Joe, Joseph Holmes, and North Macedonia and Italy's own Alan Amedovski. And I have this to say. The picture on the right-hand side of the screen is Alan Amedovski when he was supposed to fight 3-2 Hu Yaozhang last year. Amedovski had been off for a long time, looked bodied up. We said before the video started, he looked determined, Matt. He had a gleam in his eye. Were you impressed?
I really was. Well, okay, going into the performance, I was impressed. I was impressed by his stare down, his physique going into that fight, and I really thought we were going to get the best version of Alan Amedovski.
So for Alan Amedovski, he's kind of like a fidget spinner and Mason Ramsey. Hot in 2018. Where have they been since? I don't know.
That was tough.
That was really, really bad. But
see, I'm not yodeling out there in the street or in the aisles of Walmart.
That much is true. But what I do know about Amedovski is he's no stranger to long layoffs and then winning very impressive fights. He beat Will Fleury, whose nickname is the F word.
So a guy was hyped up.
That was pretty good. Will Fleury's still doing it. But between 2015 and 2018, no fights for Alan Amedovski. Gets a win over, a pro debuting Badr Mahmoud over with Magnum FC4. So a big win there. Then he beats Will Fleury in the first round. Then he beats Ibrahim Mane in 12 seconds, and the UFC went a-ringing. I want this guy. We need this man. Let's go. Let's get ourselves an Amedovski. So he goes out there and fights Christophe Jacko. Matt, I went back and watched that fight, and then I thought, okay, well, what were the scores in that one? 30-26, 30-26, 30-25, and in the last round for Amedovski, he was outstruck 50-0.
It was awful.
50-0 and controlled for 3 minutes and 33 seconds by Christophe Jacko. So then what does Amedovski do? Picks up the pieces and about 5 months later goes out and fights Captain John Phillips. What happens? John Phillips goes, well, that's cute. I'm going to knock you out in 14 seconds. John Phillips, bad UFC career.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but if you get knocked out by John Phillips, you shouldn't be in the UFC anymore.
So the UFC goes, okay, well, you're going to fight Bavon Lewis in 2020. And Alan Amedovski goes, nope, I'm withdrawing. And then he's supposed to fight Hu Yaozhang a couple times, and he doesn't. And it just doesn't happen. So ultimately, that would have been his meal ticket. That would have been the, well, damn, we got to keep Alan Amedovski around the UFC a little bit more. Why? Why, Craig? Because Hu Yaozhang was 3-2. That's why. 3-2.
Not 3-2 in the UFC. 3-2 as a fighter.
3-2 at the time. So Alan Amedovski had that golden opportunity. He could have had the golden ticket, but it didn't happen. Now he's going to be taking on Ugly Man Joseph Holmes, a guy who, listen, the positives are very positive. I look at Holmes as a guy similar to somebody that we saw in the co-main event last weekend at light heavyweight. Ryan Span's bigger than any other light heavyweight you're ever going to see. Joseph Holmes likewise at middleweight. They both feature very, very good reaches, but they don't use them because Joseph Holmes, a lot of it spent in boxing range, in close proximity, up against the cage, so on and so forth. Two really long rangey guys that also, for the pop that they have in their shots, have more wins by submission than they do anything else. That's kind of it for Holmes, but just like Ryan Spann, both guys lack in the wrestling department. They can get taken down, they can get outstruck. There's things that I like out of Holmes, there's things that I don't. Oddly enough, trains out of SFS MMA, has James Krause in his corner, Glory Fitness and MMA, or MMA and Fitness, regardless. But Matt, this is a weird fight this weekend.
So you brought it up in the Uros Medic preview show that we just did not that long ago, where Uros was able to get away with some really big mistakes against a lower level of competition outside of the UFC. I look at Joseph Holmes in a very similar manner. If you do go back and look at a lot of the guys that we fought, yes, the records might look okay. Most of them do not whatsoever. But when you actually go back and watch the fights, a lot of the guys he's in the cage with are not high-level fighters whatsoever. And a lot of those guys do have glaring weaknesses in their games, no matter what their records might suggest. And that's the thing about Holmes. Going into his last fight, I didn't have the highest opinion of him, and then after it, I still have the exact same opinion. He has decent defensive submissions if he is placed in that position. I would say that's sort of the standout of his game. But like you said, for being as big as he is at this weight class, you would expect him to fight in a very different manner. We talk about this a lot with guys in the top 15. It's, hey, does their skill set have any synergy together? Do they have the wrestling that can get them to their jiu-jitsu? Do they have the takedown defense that can help them keep it standing? Not much that Joseph Holmes does really ties together to his next skill set, and that's really what I worry about him just being effective at the UFC level with, because for Amedovski, Does he have a well-rounded skill set? No, not at all. He has big power on the feet, and I did expect him to sort of do to John Phillips what John Phillips did to him in that fight, so I was very surprised that Amedovski went down so early in that matchup, and maybe I'm just so low on both of these guys that I can't offer a non-clouded opinion. I don't look at Amedovski or Joseph Holmes as guys who are going to have 5-6 fights in the UFC. Like, this really is do or die for both these athletes.
So 6 inches of height and reach go to the favor of Joseph Holmes. He can get submissions. We've seen that in the past. We've seen Alan Amedovski about 20 weeks ago on his Instagram train with Hamzat Chimaev at All Stars, so who knows what that was about. But for Amedovski, even in his win, again, 8 wins, all by knockout, most of them very quick, and he is more of a brawler. He goes in there in 50-50 exchanges, and usually he's not the nail, he's the hammer, so he's able to win. But against John Phillips, that wasn't so. That was the last time that we saw him. Matt, for Alan Amedovski, the last fight was 2 years and 7 months ago. He debuted 3 years ago against Krzysztof Jotko in what was a bridge too far for Amedovski. But again, I go through everything that I have. Both guys have poor cardio. They both don't have great cardio.
Right.
Joseph Holmes looked really good in his first round against Jamie Pickett. And then in the second round, it was diminished a little bit. In the third round, it was really diminished, and Pickett was able to take over. So I do have a really, really tricky time trying to give you, a prediction, because I see this as very 50-50, and neither guys really impressed me in a while. And that, again, Joseph Holmes was able to get the win over Jonathan Patti, who was on Dana White's Contender Series at one point. Joseph Holmes himself was on Dana White's Contender Series, taking on a short notice Shante Barnes, and picked up a big win there. But I do have a very hard time on these guys. You look at the odds. Holmes open to minus 220 favorite, minus 195 right now. Amedovski open a plus 185, plus 160. So starting to close in. More than likely some uncertainty out there among the predicting folks. We have a look over on Topology. I would suspect the guy that's won a fight in the last 4 years is probably favored. Over under 70% Joseph Holmes?
I'll say under.
It's over 532 total votes, 87% Holmes, 18% by decision, 17% by submission, 61% by knockout. For the 13% that have Amedovski, 40% by decision, you silly gooses, and 43% by knockout. It is a weird fight. Can the big guy get it done? I mean, 7-0 as an amateur is Joseph Holmes, 7-2 as a pro, and coming out of, and I want to make sure I get this right to give them the credit they deserve, Salasang Fighting System. That's what SFS stands for.
I can't fault anybody for any pick in this fight, for being honest. Like, neither one of these guys the highest level of just MMA fighters in the middleweight division at the UFC. I do think Amedovski does have a decided advantage on the feet. I do think his power shots are going to be much more damaging on Joseph Holmes. But I do think Holmes, and you're right, neither guy has good cardio. I'm going to ever so slightly favor the cardio of Joseph Holmes because I think he might be able to sustain his output overall if he doesn't fight with such a flurry in the early goings of this fight. And I do favor him a little bit with the grappling. I'm just so surprised to see there being such a decided favorite, being Holmes in the Tapology votes, because to me, this is the definition of a 50-50 fight. Yes, Amedovski's been off for a long time, but it's not like Holmes has made these massive improvements from fight to fight that we see. So I think there's a great chance for Amedovski to win, and that's why I'm going to pick him.
Yeah, it really is a tricky one. And I mean, to me, Mane that Amedovski fought, not a bad fighter at that time, and now he's kind of set his career off on a different course. And Will Fleury as well. I consider him still in high enough regard, especially when you're considering fighters like Holmes, like Amedovski. Those guys are in that periphery. And look at what you had Amedovski going out there and doing so quickly. So it really is a tricky one. I haven't seen it of late. I do like Joseph Holmes' submission ability. If he can mix in a little bit of that wrestling, we'll see what James Krause has to say to him going into this one. But I think Joseph Holmes should be able to eke out that first UFC win. So both of us reluctantly, oddly, scarily going with the favorite in this fight, Joseph Holmes. But I'm staying away from
I said Amedovski.
You're going with Amedovski?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
How could you be confident in either one of them? How's that a holy smokes?
I'm not. So we're split on the pick. Matt's got Amedovski. I've got Joseph Holmes. Let us know in the comments section who you have down below. And maybe you're a clairvoyant. You can see into the future. Maybe you can help us out a little bit. But the crystal ball here is broken. So big time fights left on this card. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.